Good afternoon and welcome to all of you. My name is Kaustup Bandyopadhyay and I'm your moderator for today's Samvad or conversation on nurturing civil society partnership in uncertain times. This is the fourth conversation organized by Priya as part of its 40th anniversary celebration. We have made a slight change for this particular event. Unlike other three events, this one is being organized in a hybrid mode. Some of us are physically present in this room and others are joining online. The conversation on nurturing civil society partnerships in uncertain times is being organized in partnership with our long-standing partners, Center for Youth and Social Development, which is based in Bhubaneswar, Sahayog Shikshan Kendra, SSK, which is based in Lucknow, Samarthan, which is based in Bhopal, and Unnati, which is based in Ahmedabad. We have with us the founder chief executives of these partner organizations. Again, some are physically present in this room, and Mr. Ashok Singh, who is the chief executive of Sahayog Shikshan Kendra, he is joining online. All of them will share their thoughts with us today. We also have with us leadership and board members from various other organizations and networks. Before we proceed further, we would like to take you through some of the critical journeys of Priya. Friends, Priya's 40 years of journey has been an exciting one, a journey about sustaining an independent, forward-looking, and energetic civil society organizations in an otherwise rapidly disrupted and uncertain world. We have always considered ourselves as educators and facilitators, supporting individuals, organizations, and grassroots initiatives to learn, change, grow, and sustain themselves. Priya's support has been in form of sharing information of ideas, generating new knowledge, building linkages and relationships, providing intermediation expertise, and at times, emotional support. Priya's theory of change follows bridging the supply and demand sides of any issue or theme we invest in. Efforts to mobilize individuals, especially the poor and the marginalized sections, but increasingly also the middle class, make them aware about their rights and responsibilities, thus fueling their sense of agency to demand services, inclusion, participation, and knowledge. On the supply side, we work with governments and private agencies and sensitize them to deliver their mandates and be accountable to the citizens. Priya has worked on right to learn, right to know, right to information, and right to participation through various thematic areas, such as citizen participation, gender integration, empowering civil society, decentralized community governance, sustainable urban future, and building knowledge democracy. As Priya celebrates its 40th anniversary, we recommit ourselves for removing obstacles to sustainable change, raising individual and collective voices, and making democracy work for all in everyday life. Friends, let me now invite the founder president of Priya, Dr. Rajesh Tandon, to take us through of today's conversation and the background in which we are organizing this conversation on civil society partnership. Rajesh bhai, all is yours.
Thank you, Kaustup. आप सब लोगों को नमस्कार और आज के इस प्रिया एट 40 संवाद में आपका स्वागत है। मैं इस संवाद को आपके साथ इसलिए शुरू कर रहा हूं क्योंकि मैं आपको थोड़ा सा इतिहास बताना चाहता हूं। Even though Priya began in 1982, legally, we had started working with a number of grassroots organizations in the first few years. And every 4 or 5 years, we would have a consultation with them about the role that Priya should play. In February 1989, even before we shifted to our new building here, we had undertaken an external evaluation of our programs and the support it was providing. And in a meeting of nearly 100 persons with whom we were working around the country and some internationally, we for the first time discussed the notion that a support function within civil society was so important and critical. And we will put it up on our chat box. You can see our publication. It's available on our website. Exploring New Horizons. This was the document that came out of that. और उस समय ये बात हुई उस मीटिंग में कि providing support sitting in Delhi in a complex and large country like this is not adequate. So many people started saying Priya should open branches in Tamil Nadu, in Maharashtra, in Assam, wherever. And we listened to them. We recognized the value of providing contextually relevant, culturally appropriate support, given the diversity of the country and the diversity of voluntary initiatives at that stage. But we did not want to open branches. So after the meeting, we had a reflection, and against all advice of opening Priya branches, we decided that we would find a way to seed new initiatives led by people who believed in similar support function and who would develop their networks within those regions and geographies, socio-geographies in their own way. And from that initiative, within a period of 4 or 5 years between 1990 to 1994-95, several support organizations. Unnati came up in Ahmedabad. I'm delighted that Binoy, its founder leader, is here with us. Sabhagi Shikshan came up in Lucknow. Ashok is not here with us, but part of the conversation. Sankot came up in Patna, in Bihar. Samarthan, Yogesh is here, came up in Madhya Pradesh, in Bhopal. And Sahai Placid is joining online, came up in Kerala. We had a few other initiatives, one in Shimla, one in Andhra Pradesh, one in Pune, but they did not survive in the same fashion. And this is a risk we were willing to take, because when you seed new initiatives, not all of them survive in the same way. But we also invited many existing organizations who were playing support function in whatsoever form they were, to also become a part of this network. So we're delighted to invite Center for Youth and Social Development. Its mentor and founder, Jagdabai, is here with us. Rural Development Trust, in those days when Father Ferrer was providing leadership in Anantapur and Mala Reddy were active, they became very strong partners in support function. I'm glad to welcome Indrani from CINI, which was also a very important partner in participatory training methodology when Dr. Sameer Chaudhary was very active physically and took the support function to the various health and child development civil society groups and through NIPSED. And of course, HARC, Himalayan Action Research Center based in Dehradun, working in Uttarakhand. So this partnership began to design a set of collaborative interventions. We were all providing some sort of a capacity building support, Our purpose was to promote participatory development, empowerment of the vulnerable, and practicing methodologies which promote participation, social mobilization, collective organization of the vulnerable and excluded. And we realized very soon that in what are now called aspirational districts, 20 years ago were called poorest area districts of the country. Those districts have more or less remained the same. These 100 districts, 110 districts, in the former Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, former I am saying because Madhya Pradesh became Chhattisgarh also, Bihar, which became Jharkhand, and UP, which became Uttarakhand as well. In these 4 states, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh, Bihar, and UP, we realized that the poorest districts actually also were weakest in participatory development type of voluntary organizations. So between 1996 and 2000, we seeded a number of new initiatives which we call Mind Fellowships, and nearly 110, 112 of them were seeded, and with a fantastic survival rate of nearly 90%. Many of them have now an annual turnover larger than Priyas. And we are very proud that they became very active in promoting grassroots development in those districts. Then after the Panchayati Raj institutions became statutorily mandated, in between 1997 and 2002, a collaborative effort, we were discussing this morning how a collaborative effort by this partnership of regional support organizations launched a program to strengthen Panchayati Raj institutions. And from pre-election voter awareness campaigns to building capacity of elected Panchayat leaders, to engaging in micro-planning, to facilitating conversations with state finance commissions, a wide range of initiatives were taken up in nearly 27 states of the country in that era. This large partnership was possible because we had worked together as a support organization platform. And then between 2002 to 2008, we launched a joint program called Governance Where People Matter, a program which included urban communities as well, and engaged with media, with academia, and of course with other civil society organizations. In the process, there was a time when this collaborative effort had nearly 48 urban resource centers all over the country, each experimenting with the models related to citizen participation and inclusive urbanization in those medium and small towns of the country. And they also experimented with a number of places in 2005, 6, and 7, much before national programs came into being on participatory urban planning. So today we have gathered here not only to hear the experiences of this support organization network, but many of you who have likewise worked in partnership with others. And we want to learn from those experiences because we feel we have reached a stage in the democratic development of our society now where such strong civil society partnerships, which are not based on movement of money, but which are based on shared mission and vision of working together to bring about a just and inclusive society and development in India. So I'm going to stop here with that introduction and hand it over to my colleague Kaustav to moderate this. We have a set of questions we have posed and he will help us have this conversation. Invite all of you to join that. आप इसमें सक्रियता से भाग करें क्योंकि ये हम सब लोगों के सीखने के लिए जरूरी है. धन्यवाद.
Thank you so much, राजेश भाई. आज जो बैकग्राउंड नोट राजेश भाई ने सर्कुलेट किया था हम लोगों के साथ, उसमें 4 सवाल हम लोगों ने सोचा था आज के डिस्कशन के लिए. So the first question was, how do civil society partnership around shared purposes sustain themselves over time? The second question was, which principles underpin the vibrancy of such partnerships? The third question was, what challenges emerge in the course of such partnership, such as competition for resources, contestation for leadership, conflicts around accountability, and so on and so forth. And the last question that we want to discuss today, in today's context, what will it make or take to nurture many more partnerships amongst civil society? So in order to take forward this discussion, let's take these questions in several rounds. And we all expect that all of you will participate and reflect on these questions from your perspective, and various partnerships that you have catalyzed or fostered, nurtured, and strengthened. Those who are participating online, I would request you to raise your hand by clicking. There is a black band either on top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen, and there is an icon called reaction. If you click that, you will see another button called raise hand. So you can raise your hand so that we can understand that you want to speak. Because in physical room we can see who wants to speak, but it will be helpful if you follow that icon. So what we are going to do is
Kaustubh, this is Vijay Mahajan.
Vijay,
May I just request you for a few minutes, because I have to unfortunately leave by 4 o'clock for another meeting. And
okay.
I just wanted to, I realize I'm speaking out of turn, but it's very important that I just say a few things, and then whenever you can give me time.
So you can start the discussion taking any of these questions, but I would then request you to focus more on the last question, which is futuristic.
First of all, I want to congratulate Priya for its 40 years of tremendous pioneering work and providing so many path-breaking initiatives. And Rajesh was recalling all the partnerships formally that Priya had, but there were many other organizations such as Pradhan, when I used to work in Pradhan in those days, which were greatly influenced by Priya's work and thinking. So I just want to show you this little diagram which I had made last year when Rajesh Bhai and I were actually attending a session on collaboration in the Pradhan's 40th anniversary. And as you can see, the 3 colors, red, yellow, and green, basically represent, you might say, the status of collaboration at the beginning, in the middle, and in the end. So the red is the initial conditions or the inputs. And basically each stakeholder brings different values, different culture, different resources, different constraints, and different goals. And they are also accountable to very different publics, different funders, different galleries. And they have a lot of prejudice about each other, even if we are all from the same civil society. And limited experience of working together. We may know about each other, but we have not often worked together. There are very few organizations like Priya, which basically have made it their business to work with other organizations. Most organizations do their own thing. So therefore, when you have to bring together people in partnerships, you are dealing with these initial conditions which I have listed. I will, of course, share this with Kaustubh later so that he can circulate it, even if it's not very clear right now. So yet what brings us together is that we agree on the problem in the past and in the present. And the issue is, do we agree towards the future, which is, do we have a shared goal, and do we have shared strategies? And that brings me to the yellow part of the diagram, which is the processes that we have to have. And there we put the community at the center. we listen to the people. We listen to local, small grassroots organizations. We communicate with each other infinitely, iteratively, again and again. We build trust and respect by working together on initially on smaller problems and later on bigger problems. And then we build on each other's perspective and capability. At least I have benefited lifelong by following these simple rules of listening to the people, listening to small grassroots organizations which work with the people, continuously communicating, and approaching everyone with respect and trust to begin with, taking people at face value. And I think now that so much trust has got eroded in society, one really misses those days when one could actually treat anybody in civil society as a fellow traveler and share a lot of ideas and resources. And then we move to the third, the green thing, which is hopefully if the processes work, then the output or the outcome is building a future towards the shared vision. And that basically enables us to scale up islands of excellence. Each of us do small things very well, but to take it to scale is the big issue. It enables quality with quantity and coverage. It enables efficient use of resources by avoiding duplication and by addressing gaps, if there are any. And most importantly, it enables learning. And all this then leads to, better performance in terms of the outcomes. And we therefore then, from this, we create a feedback loop and put it back into the initial conditions. And so when I share the full diagram by email with Kaustav, and you please circulate it to the others, the logic of this would become, this is my attempt actually to come up with a more abstract process of how collaborations work. In practice, all of you are experts in trying to collaborate. And so in that sense, it's nothing new for you. But I was just thinking that since Priya is a knowledge institution, that we should start building a theory of practical collaboration. And this was my attempt at doing so, Rajesh Bhai, as a gift to Priya for its 40th anniversary. Having said this, I'll stay for a few more minutes if there's any comments or questions, but after that, I have to beg off. I'm really sorry.
Thank you so much, Bijayji, for sharing these profound thoughts. And in a way, this presentation sets the stage for today's discussion. And three things that you have said, that stayed with me at least. In earlier days, we were taught that trust begets trust. So conversation after conversation, we are hearing that how important is this trust. And second thing that you have talked about, learning from the actors, those are active on an issue, but also learning from the community and coming together with a shared purpose and shared strategy. All these are really profound and foundational for any partnership. So thank you so much for sharing this. I'm taking off these slides for the time being, Bijayji, if you allow me. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, you stay with us for a couple of minutes, and
yes.
And if there are new insights and you want to reflect on, please do so. So let us go back to our larger participants, both offline, online, physical, virtual. The first question, I would suggest that we take the first two questions together. And if I may remind you, the first question was, how do civil society partnerships around shared purpose sustain themselves over time? So Bijayji has talked about, shared purpose is the basis for coming together, but here an added dimension is that which is sustained over time, which has a life of its own. And what are the principles around which this sustenance of this network, not only bare existence, but also its vibrancy is maintained. So that's the first question. And if I may invite Jagdaji to reflect on these first two questions as a kind of second kickoff, and then we go around both inside the room and virtually.
Thank you, Kaustav. Let me compliment Priya and the solidarity and all those who are part of this conversation, that we really, Priya deserves a huge compliment from all of us, and we have to pat Priya and also pat at the back of each one of us being part of Priya. That is something where I would like to start. I think the first principle which I see around our partnership, around our collective, is the compelling purpose for which we are together. If the intention and purpose is compelling on a societal issue in which we are committed, that is the most binding glue for all of us. And that is something which was there actually. And what was the compelling purpose and intention for being together? Promoting active citizenship and accountable participatory governance. These two were so compelling, so critical, so important, and that was the glue in which we came together. That is the first principle. The second principle which I would like to share is this whole values, the value system around which we work together. And one of the values which also brought us together is this whole issue of mutual trust and mutual accountability. We are accountable to each other, and at the same time, at institutional level, there was a very strong accountability as well as transparency. And as a collective, we were together also through, bound by mutual trust and mutual accountability. So that was first. The second was sharing and caring. The principle which was bringing us together, one principle is we are not loners, because the challenge which we have taken, the big ticket agenda which we are pursuing, is a big issue actually. That requires many hands approach. Many organizations have to come together actually. And if many organizations have to come together, then collective and solidarity amongst the collective is critical actually. And so caring and sharing that I exist, I'm doing my work, but I'm alone, not enough actually. How do I bring others? How do I work with others so that we are able to build a critical mass of change agents of the change which we are mandated to bring? I think these are the few things I thought very touching for me out of my own experience.
Thank you, Jagdaji. Anyone who are participating virtually, you want to Manu Gupta from SIDS.
Yes, hi, good afternoon. And yes, I join all others in congratulating Priya for this fantastic milestone. I was in school when Priya started, so I am not the same generation. Maybe I'm the second generation. And there is a generation after me that is also out there, that is we are seeing. And I wanted to raise a concern here, and that I think is coming in the way of this collective spirit that this question raises to discuss in this forum. And it is this disconnect that I see between these three generations of civil society organizations, if I may. And there is almost like an invisible wall that kind of um, uh, creates that disconnect, a very tacit but invisible disconnect. And I find that personally very frustrating because there seems to be a kind of a comfort zone created among these three generations. The ones who were born, or so to say, born during the 80s and then the 90s and then the new millennials, so to say. So I think that's something that we need to address if we really want to look at long-term shared purposes. And in that, I'll pick up on what Jagdananji said about caring and sharing. And I think if we can really bring the leaderships in these generational gaps together, I think we will make that start. We will break the ice on that front and also address some of the concerns that Vijay had in his presentation. So that's something to look at. And if I may just take 10 seconds more to say that even within our own organizations, I think one other area that we really need to look at is how are we nurturing the second and the third line of leadership, and how are they connecting to fellow compatriots in other organizations, and is that gelling happening or not? So these are, I think, some of the ingredients for looking at a long-term shared purpose and a collective journey towards a common goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manuji. Thank you so much. I can see Shilaji has raised her hand. Shilaji is the Chief Executive of Spark and a former chair of Priya. Shilaji.
Thank you, and I'm so happy to see some of the faces in the physical meeting. Wish I was there with you. I'm really excited at this particular conversation, and I want to pick on some of the things that have already been said, but add some more. I think the most important reality of when long-term partnerships occur is when not only is there trust and friendships, but there is real value added from being partners. That's what is different from just being friends and being organizations that are committed to work together. In terms of what value added do we bring to each other, and collectively what value we add to the things that matter to the constituencies that we work with. And I think that if you dig deeper into many of the things that Priya has done successfully, for me, that lies at the base of it. It is a generous sharing of knowledge and information, which is two ways, but it's also three ways in terms of picking up what are critical issues, challenges, insights that come from the ground, giving them name, giving them legitimacy, and using them as the basis of the dialogue and discussion that happens. So every decade has brought new and difficult and different challenges. And right now we stand at a point where many organizations are facing death by FCRA, death by the state institutional mechanisms, death by the kind of donors that are giving money, that are making organizations subcontractors, and a global, increasingly top-down manner of development agendas. And I think that only through very strong long-term partnerships that believe in some very fundamental things that we can collectively articulate to make a representation that withstand these negative issues that are disseminating many organizations, that we will survive. We will not survive alone. We will survive by sharing. We will survive by learning from each other. And like my previous speaker said, every generation brings new things. And those of us who are now the 1980s generation of NGOs, we know that those who preceded us irritated us by saying, in our times, we did this. So we have to make sure we don't say the same thing to younger people, and we ignite their enthusiasm and excitement, and yet support with them with the things that are still fundamental and seminal in the work that we do. So Priya also brings in a very interesting global funnel into our national work. Priya's relationships, long-term relationships with many international networks, many of which Rajesh has helped found, are another dimension that we need to bring into this partnership, because the world is global. And many of the alliances that we all need to fight locally may have some global implications. And as part of a global network called Shack Dwellers International, we see this all the time, that local voices need global support very often. And global challenges require strong local advocacy. And there are many, Jagda, for instance, and others who have done amazing work at both levels. So I think we have the ingredients for deepening and strengthening this. And I hope these discussions and discourses help sharpen and deepen both the intergenerational as well as the horizontal and other access that we all need to maintain. Thank you.
Thank you, Shilaji. I guess it's obvious that since Priya is organizing this conversation with the relationship that Dr. Tandon described in the form of NCRSO and the lessons that we have learned by working together. But we are also very keen to hear other forms of partnership, other types of partnership. And many of you have joined in today's conversation, and you have created, nurtured, strengthened those networks. If I may invite some of you, and please forgive me if I put you on spotlight all on a sudden. So may I invite Manisha? Manisha, you are there. Manisha Bahel, she's part of a great network in the Northeast region of the country. It's called Northeastern Network. Manisha, would you like to share the experience?
Yes, thank you very much. And firstly, I want to congratulate Priya on their 40th anniversary. I remember the 10th anniversary, I think. And it was quite something, because that's the time I was bringing in village women into Delhi and doing a lot of networking with the village women and the other people, with donors, with partners, etc. And I remember on that 10th anniversary, the 3 village women and my daughter was also there, where there was a performance and they did the Bihu. And it was in celebration of that anniversary. I think it's the 10th anniversary. That's one. The other thing I want to say is why I think we are successful. And that is because what Priya has done, for me at least, I never had any kind of training in when I was a young woman. I was just very enamored by seeing what Ila Bhatt was doing. And then my boss at that time was Veena Mazumdar in 1980. And all the lectures that she gave me about development work and all. But what happened was when Priya started these training programs. And it was truly what I know as participatory training programs. And we learned all these points of how to make the people, make the respondents very, very participatory, etc. And that was a strategy I used all over. I started going into Nagaland very, very late, of course, 1995, when I got this fellowship. I used the participatory model. I even did PRA, which I think, what was his name? Sorry. He had Chambers. He had, I think, introduced. So this word participatory research in Asia, and what was taught by Priya is something I will never forget. And I owe the success to this participatory way of working, because it's one of the first traits of democratic functioning. That's the way I look at it. And I want to say that in Nagaland, it's really a miracle. I went at a time when I was completely overawed. I wasn't fearful, but while traveling up to Nagaland, when you go up in the zigzag road and when you look up at the trees, you find one or two army boys with the gun pointed at the bus, stopping the bus, asking us questions. It was horrible. There was this horrible, uncanny silence, 1994-95. And when I reached Kohima and I introduced myself to people, and when I went into the villages, I realized what India meant to them. And for me, it was a huge shock, because Assam is very different from the hill states. So though we started our work in Meghalaya and Assam, my personal research was in Nagaland. What Nagaland was at that time, at least Northeast Network's initiative, and what it is now is different, because the partnerships that have developed between NEN Nagaland is with farming organization. It's with different partners who you all know. I've got the names of some of them: Nesfas, Makam. There are all these people, and then I don't want to take time with that. Everybody knows how we all work together. But I just need to say that things are very different now. And what Vijay Mahajan is saying, I agree with him. Things have changed, and even so is Sheila. What she's saying, I believe in that. There is a generation, there's a distancing from our generation and what the generation is now. The social media is one of the reasons why it has contributed to a lot of young people who are doing their own thing. And when they wish to, they can jump into any other work by just saying that I'm leaving because I'm getting something else. So that commitment that we had of democratic principles, of participatory work, I think that is getting eroded. And with the last question, what are we going to do about it? We really need to work hard at it, because I don't want to see the whole NGO, the rights-based fraternity to just erode like that. I'll stop here, because so many things are coming to me. Meghalaya, Assam, and Manipur, and all these other places where we work. But again, I would like to say that it's because of our training that people got into this realization, yes, we are something and we can work together. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Manisha. Thank you so much for this wonderful story. I could see Hiral Dev from Cohesion Foundation wants to speak. Hiral?
Yes. Hi, I'm Hiral from Cohesion. I am program director and looking after all the programs. At the same time, I am also part of WGWLO network, working group of women's land ownership in Gujarat. And I am in the thematic groups and in the board of that also. So I would like to say regarding the WGWLO network that how it is working. First of all, congratulations to Priya on this great occasion. My CEO Rajesh Kapoor was going to join, but and he had some work, so he suggested me to talk about WGWLO.
Well, can I, sorry to interrupt you, there's some audio disturbance. If you could speak a little slowly, then perhaps would be better, hear you better.
Okay. So Working Group of Women Land Ownership is a network in Gujarat which works on women farmers' rights and especially land rights of women. And we all are 42 organizations of Gujarat are part of that network since last 20 years. So I feel that being a part of a network and also learning from the network and vice versa, network also learns from the organization. So one thing is, main key issue is the theme on which the network is formed. Like land rights of women issue, which was very much touching to all of our hearts, and still now we are equally participating in the network. And that issue is important for us, rather other dynamics or other logistics and other things. So I believe that issue-based network sustain if that issue is for everybody and it's a common vision for all the organizations. So that's what one example I wanted to give of WGWLO network. And also like earlier, the earlier speaker said about Makam. Same way Makam, which is a team-based network, like it doesn't have any formal structure, but because of that scheme or that issue, we all are part of that.
Thank you. Maybe we can come back to this room for some time, and maybe I can request Binay Bhai, Mr. Binay Acharya, Executive Director of Unnati and Chair of Voluntary Action Network of India, Vani.
Thanks, Vivek. Happy to be personally present here with Prayer 40. And as you all know, my life started with prayer. And so it's a great moment for me. This whole statement of how we sustain partnership. I think Vijay has very clearly mentioned that the processes involved. And once you are clear about the processes, and Priya is one institution which Monisha has already explained, taught everybody about processes.
Just think for a minute. It's very hard to. Some people are complaining of the.
Yeah, processes are what Vijay talked about. Processes are people centered. I remember when I used to go to the field, even now I go to the field. When I speak to our partners, in half an hour, I used to get enriched. I get so much of valuable information, so much of insights. But over years, Rajesh Bhai, I am to tell you, somebody remarked me. He said, look, you are talking, you are staying with the family. Do you think they are talking to you? Perhaps they are talking to your wallet. This struck me like anything. Today I want to share this. Today what has happened is the partnership is guided by pecuniary values. Partnership is not guided by relevance or purpose. So there is in fact, what is happening is very bad, very worrisome. Increasingly, partnership is transactional in nature. It's highly projectized. Partnership is project to project. In fact, it's in Hindi, they call it bandar bant. You have bandar bant, little bit of resource and how much you have from the pie. That is the guiding principle today to build partnership. And in that, nobody is benefiting. The NGO is not benefiting, nor the community is benefiting. What need to be revived is making it transformational, what Monisha is talking about. Because we are primarily working for change. Change, at the community level, change at ourselves. So I think what has happened, in fact, let me stick to the first question. What will sustain itself? I think continuous engagement with partners around the problem we work with. That is more important. But invariably, I'm in many boards, I'm in many committees. Invariably, people come up with saying that you give them a suggestion, they said, I don't have money. You don't have money because you don't listen to anything. So, in fact, I found myself that whatever I learned today, it is from my partners. My books has never taught me anything. In fact, when I was in Priya, I used to travel all over India. And the kind of learning I used to receive from the partners, that is invaluable even today. So, many times, what Vijay mentioned at the beginning, that we may not have shared values or shared perspective. But in those days, I remember, people come together with shared values. It's not that after coming together, they build shared values. There used to be a natural convergence of people, and those convergences worked. But in fact, what we learned from Priya, that while you will be task oriented, finally you have to deliver. But while delivering, you need to spend at least 20 to 25% of your time in terms of maintaining yourself, the maintenance role. Without those maintenance roles, the partnership fail. And maintenance role means, in fact, Priya has written a small booklet about partnership. And I remember, and what caring and sharing Manu has said, it's saying that, is your shoulder available for me to cry? But today there is no shoulder. So where to cry? Because in this difficult work, and we are calling it uncertain times, in uncertain times you need multiple shoulders. But that is not available today. Everything has to be provided in 24 hours notice. So entire our relationship is input-output. And many a times, perhaps, we have forgotten the goal. So we are chasing a mirage where we'll never reach. So partner, in fact, I remember, I don't name the institution, it's a larger institution. And every year they used to invite me to hold a workshop about partnership. And we discuss about that, how should be our behavior, how should be our attitude to maintain our partnership. And many times we make a lot of mistakes. And those are the occasions where you correct ourselves. Because while you are, and I must end here saying that if you are good at partnership, you'll be a good human being. You'll be a good partner at home, you'll be a good partner at society where you're living, you are a good partnership in the sector. So partnership is a valuable thing. In fact, we used to, when I used to work in Priya and afterwards, we said that, like there's a cricket advertisement, that I eat cricket, I drink cricket, I sleep cricket. Here we do everything in partnership. So that has to be spirit. And without that spirit, perhaps partnership cannot be nurtured. Thank you.
Thank you, Binay Bhai. I see Bharti from HUC. Bharti?
Yes, thank you so much. And many congratulations to Priya for completing 40 years and in such a wonderful way, guiding so many of us all the way along. I just want to add to what the previous speaker has said, definitely, the partnerships have become more transactional and, that natural convergence has stopped. There have been times when, it would be about just learning together, moving ahead. one wouldn't wait for someone to act. There would be that natural convergence. People would just assume roles, would go with the larger sentiment and the flow and take on responsibilities and contribute to that movement or, the campaign. That does not happen as naturally now anymore. And partly that's because a lot of coming together is now a funded activity. It's donor driven. Donors have created their own networks of organizations, and they survive and thrive on those networks of organizations. There's no doubts that the recent changes in the environment have given rise to a whole range of complexities. And I'm hopeful there that probably that's going to change the donor-driven networks and campaigns a little bit, because you can't sub-grant anymore. So people will probably now come together more on the issue and not looking at the sub-granting part. So there's a little hope there. But yeah, I wanted to flag that along with the fact that we've also seen times when people have become more important than the cause. In not so far back, we saw this movement against in corruption, India against corruption. And it didn't have to be about, or with due respect to all the leaders who were there. It didn't have to be about Anna Hazare or about Arvind Kejriwal or about Prashant Bhushan or anybody. It had to be about the cause. So when we, and social media brings its own positive things with it, but there's also this thing of then making people larger than the cause that happens through social media. So we somewhere need to be a little cautious about that. We need to definitely rely on social media in the times that we are in, but how do we then ensure that it's about the cause and not then about the people? So that's something I wanted to put across. Also, somebody raised the issue of, organizations, and my friend from SEED, I think SEED, talked about second line leadership within organizations. So we have to have that even within campaigns and other movements, besides natural convergence, there has to be some kind of a core that needs to be created, which should happen naturally, but acceptance that there will be a core that will be taking some things forward. I see a lot of emotions and sentiments becoming very fragile these days, for some reasons. And possibly one of the reasons is competition and contestation for leadership, etc. But keeping that aside, we need to come back to working together and reflecting on these things whenever there is a need. In fact, off and on. The other thing is that sorry, it's just slipped my mind, but maybe I'll come in a little later.
Yeah, I can hold on to that point and we can come back to you, Bharti.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Thank you so much. Let me invite Sudhir Sahani. And Sudhir is the director and partnership in Pradhan. So you have the license to partner and, sort of official tag attached to your designation. You have to talk about partnership.
Okay. Thanks, Pastor, and obviously congratulations to Priya on 40th year celebration. I think I am just about 4.5 years in the development sector. And in that sense, I am a bit of a greenhorn. I've had about 27, 28 years in the corporate marketing and advertising world. I think and when I joined Pradhan, I thought, amazing, what an organization been around for so long. It's quite fascinating to see how Priya has been around longer, an idea that has endured for so long, and also endured on the basis of partnerships and working with people. So that's quite fascinating. I think it's a great moment for me personally itself to be here today. A couple of thoughts that come to mind since I've been in the corporate sector, and I am still very much in awe of what people do in the development sector. It's fascinating for me to see how people can be driven from within and looking at goals and purposes which do not necessarily look at personal kind of benefits. So that's very humbling. That's very kind of enriching for me in that sense. I think one of the things that comes to mind is that when people are in the corporate sector, in the profit sector, then gaining profits, growing revenue itself sometimes tends to become a purpose, and that's what drives people. But more and more people are saying that within the profit sector also, there needs to be a larger purpose in life. You can't be just making money and gaining promotion and living in a bigger house or getting, a lot of things in life, the material things. So in that sense, I feel a lot of people sometimes tend to leave organizations in the corporate world because sometimes they see there is a lack of the larger purpose and money is not good enough. I think that is in abundance in the development sector. So I think that is what kind of knits people together. And my feeling is that a lot of people might leave organizations in the not-for-profit sector or leave collaborations if there is a mismatch of purpose. Because sometimes if you lose sight of the big purpose, and which is really the reason why you are working, it's not necessarily for money or personal kind of benefit. If that purpose becomes a little hazy or there is lack of alignment, so I think there is constant need to kind of restate that purpose, revisit that, realign yourself on that. Otherwise, people kind of tend to fall away on the wayside. So it's important for us to keep doing that. And that's very key. Sometimes we undermine that, we take it for granted, and we say, of course, you know why you are here. But sometimes people don't. I mean, it's better to be stated, restated, revisited, realigned on that. So I think that's important. The other thing, of course, is this whole thing of how people kind of work together. And I feel that this entire humility that, the fact that we've come together, and why have we come together, we all accept that each one of us cannot be good enough. I mean, we might be good, but we can be great together. The fact that we all appreciate that some of the challenges that we are facing and what we have to deliver is far difficult than selling soaps or selling IT products or selling any kind of product or services. Working in the development sector needs you to be working together. So there is, once you accept that and you have the humility that I think the humility that you have to constantly learn from each other. And I think that's one of the things that I kind of first reflected when I joined Pradhan, and perhaps relevant in case of Priya also. One of the things that I came to mind was that, I told Pradhan that, you've been around for 37, 38 years. So that's your great strength, but that could well be your biggest weakness also. Because you feel that for 37, 38 years, you've done that, you will keep doing that. But as all of us are reflecting, there are changing times. So saying that social media is corrupting people or something else is corrupting people doesn't help. That's the reality of it. We've got to accept that. We've got to therefore bring in more and more people in the current reality. We've got to learn from each other, open to be learning from the younger generation, second generation, third generation. And similarly, I think we need to learn from other stakeholders that we work with, not just within ourselves in civil society. If we need the corporate, if we need the government, and I think a lot of our work happens with the governments, and all of us know that if scale has to be brought on large scale, then it has to be part of the mainstream. Then governments and those bodies and maybe corporate finance and money has to be part of it. Now, a lot of those people might be driven by different motivations. Now, I do not rubbish those and say, no, you don't understand how this is done. They have come into life, they didn't come into life to become a development professional. They came in to make money. Now, what we are trying to tell them is that perhaps there is a better way of doing things. If we are willing to kind of tell them that, I think we need to understand from their point of view also what makes the difference. So that's what I'm saying. I mean, the fact that one is we have to be humble enough to learn from others. The other, I think we need to be committed, as somebody said earlier, to add value back. I think it's our responsibility that if we are part of a collaboration, as much we don't need to be the big brother and drive our own agenda, we should become this small brother and just listen to everything and just kind of keep moving on. I think we need to add back a lot of value to what that collaboration is, so that we should be equal partners. My sense is collaborations happen well only amongst equal people. So we need to ensure that we treat ourselves as equal. We never should treat ourselves as unequal. And as much as we should be open to be learning from others, I think we should be willing to kind of add back and contribute something. The third thing that I find, and I know we usually chase larger goals, I think milestones, and whether we call it projectizing or whatever, I think milestones are important. We need to have a little more tangible and definite milestones which can be reached, which can be pursued. And then I think what is important, and I find it missing, and I'm hoping that this is one of the reasons why we are here, is this hoping of celebration. I don't think we celebrate enough. I don't think we celebrate great achievements. I think I mean, some of the people that I work with in Pradhan, I think some of them are, each one of them is perhaps worthy of winning the Nobel Prize. But people do not want to talk about their work. I think they should. Why don't the bad stories get around? Good stories we get for people to celebrate, congratulate each other, and say, fantastic. I mean, and that's why sometimes, and I had this interview with Dr. Tandon, and he said some of my colleagues of 40 years from IIT asked me, "So, तुमने पूरी उम्र किया क्या?" I mean, here is this gentleman who's put his entire life in something so large, and you know what? His friends didn't know about it, or maybe didn't understand it. I think it's a responsibility to tell people what you are doing, because if you want them to be working with you and appreciating what you are doing, then you have to be open and sharing and celebrate. I think, in my mind, that's very important that we celebrate, so that gives us added energy, and says that vibrancy comes in, that kind of partnerships and sense of achievement. It's good to achieve, right? Beyond what all of us like to achieve sometimes. It may not be very material things, but there has to be a sense of achievement. I think our families need to acknowledge us. Sometimes I don't think people take the pains to explain to our families what we are doing. They're wondering. There was a development apprentice in our organization who told me, he says, मैंने तो अपने डैड को बताने ही छोड़ दिया कि मैं क्या करता हूँ, क्योंकि एवरी टाइम मैं गाँव जाता हूँ कि भाई मेरा बावला बेटा आ गया. He doesn't understand what I'm doing, but I'm saying we have to take that effort to tell people what we are doing, because that excites people, that brings in more people, and it really helps the process. Both collaborations and partnerships within the organization and across stakeholders, I think some of these things might be helpful. So thank you so much.
That's very useful, Sudhir. Why we use this mic, you have to constantly behave like a Madonna. So you have to keep it like this. So maybe you can come back to Indrani. Yeah, please.
First of all, thank you, Priya team, for inviting Sini to share our experience in this important forum. And congratulations, Rajesh ji and Priya team for the completion of 40 years and giving leadership to the sector. So really, we have to appreciate that, and I agree with you. That one celebration, yes. So all of us, we are part of this celebration. Thank you again. So I want to highlight, because many challenges are already, highlighted. I want to add one more, that is COVID-19, because it is really a challenge in the sector in terms of reaching to the communities. And because earlier it was not like that, and now so many restrictions are there. So funding is also a problem, and especially the services, because as you say that, Sini is also very much in partnership with the government. But since last 2 years, we saw that, the services which the communities are getting from the government, that is also disturbed in education, in health, and every sector. So yes, we are, going through this phase. And other challenges, yes, it is already, discussed by the other, speakers, like FCRA sub-grant issue, which hit the space, development space. Donor mindset and orientation, yes, all of us, sometimes we are facing. But still, I am very much, positive in this, point that now some donors are also, want to work in the sector in a consortium mode. So they also, want us to, bring all of our, strength in one area, in one project maybe, or some development space. For example, if we are, we have some learning in health and nutrition, so we want to bring another one who has expertise in education or livelihood kind of thing. So that is a positive, change I can see in last 9 years or 9-10 years. And definitely another challenge is leveraging foreign grant, because when Priya or Sini started the journey, that time donor, bluntly gave us money to build the institution. Now, getting institutional grant is really a challenge, but all of us know that, that is very much needed to sustain our organization, to build capacity of our own, colleagues who can contribute very meaningfully in the sector. So that is another challenge. And other challenges, yes, many good organizations are there who are working in the villages, in the slums, but there are less opportunities of space for sharing their learnings, challenges, and to be part of the mainstream, kind of development work. So I think because the last question is very much related to the challenges, so what will it take to nurture many more partnerships? So I will again emphasize on the good leadership in the sector. And as Binayji emphasized that, yes, leadership without thinking only the projectization, because beyond projectization, we should think to sustain a partnership. It is not so easy. So many challenges are there to sustain a partnership, a network, not only financial challenges, but also, other challenges like, trust building, listening to others, sharing resources. We should not only financial resources, I'm saying training materials and also capacity. So that is also a challenge within the sector. But if we can overcome that, only, strong leadership can, show us the light. And second one is, yes, avoiding duplication. That is very important to sustain us in this partnership journey. And building second and even third line of leadership. That is also very important. And fourth one is adapting ourselves in the changing scenario. In country, at international level, I think many organizations, they don't sustain because, they are, not changing themselves, but definitely not compromising the values, ethos, and other, issues. And so these are, a few points from my side. And also, as someone probably emphasized on the use of social media, use of, digitalizing our, own space. Also, because we learned today we are, doing this important discussion in hybrid mode. So we have learned to do that. Even we didn't think 3-4 years back that we can do it, successfully. It is very successful. We can hear who are, in the remote areas, they are sharing their views. So we are learning these 2 years. We have learned many things, how we can reach to community without, physically, meeting them. So I just few words from you.
Thank you so much. I'm also looking at my watch. We wanted to conclude this session by 5 o'clock, but perhaps, we can take another 5-10 minutes, as there are a couple of other people must talk. So one of them is Ashok Singh. Ashok bhai.
Yes, Kaustubh.
Yes, please go ahead.
थैंक यू कौस्तव। और सबसे पहले तो प्रिया टीम को 40 साल की बधाई। बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट 40 साल का कार्य, and still so active and doing some very useful work for the voluntary sector. So congratulations. In fact, since last 30 years we have been associated with Priya, and based in Uttar Pradesh. Our network, regional network of collaborating regional support organization, हम लोगों ने यही नाम दिया था उन संस्थाओं का जो इस तरह के सपोर्ट फंक्शंस करने के लिए जो तैयारी हम लोगों ने की थी। ये ऑलरेडी एक सपोर्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस के रूप में पूरे देश में काम कर रही थी, और जब ये बात हुई कि रीजनल स्पेसिफिक सपोर्ट फंक्शंस की बहुत जरूरत है, and maybe this was not possible for one organizations to do in so many states. So the idea came up that Priya should encourage and promote regional support organizations. But couple of things were very clear, and that really helped in establishing this regional support organization. Number one, like Rajesh Bhai already said, these regional support organizations will have their own identity and not necessarily, as a branch of Priya. Initially, this was a challenge also because somehow we were very much related to each other, and we were seen initially that, they are linked to Priya, and they have, but that was also, some point of time a strength. Because the whole concept, the whole acceptance of working as support organization is very new, especially in some of these states. Like UP में जब हम लोगों ने पहली बार कहा कि we have come here to provide support to grassroots level organization, तो लोगों को बड़ा आश्चर्य हुआ कि ये कौन सा काम है, आप या तो फील्ड में काम करें या आप कोई दूसरा काम करें. But when we started, supporting this organization, grassroots level organizations, then they recognize the value of this kind of support. तो मुझे लगता है कि इस सपोर्ट, इस नेटवर्क के कोर में जो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज था, that we were all very clear that supporting the grassroots level organization, enabling grassroots level organization to be more effective at the grassroots level, that was the core value with which we are being driven, and that really helped us a lot. Still, based on this, core value, we are still, having some discussion, because now we are slightly worried in some of the states because of the certain situations. There are many support organizations, they are more into the field rather than, doing the support functions. So we are really worried and thinking over how collectively we can once again start this process of capacity building, because it is still very important. And most of the grassroots level organizations, they need this kind of support. Especially the new organizations are coming, the issues are changing. There are a number of challenges that civil society is facing in different parts of the state. There are some challenges at the state level. There are some challenges because of the national processes. So there is a still need for having a very vibrant, strengthened, strong, support mechanism for grassroots level organizations to be more effective and functional. तो मुझे लगता है कि इस संदर्भ में प्रिया के रोल अभी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है, और जो रीजनल सपोर्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस बने हैं, they should, they are still very relevant because they are regional specific. They know the problem of region. They relate with the regional networks very well, and now the whole this function is accepted by most of the grassroots level organizations. So they need that kind of support. Our NCRSO में जो एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण चीज हुई जिससे ये नेटवर्क बहुत स्ट्रेंथेंड हुआ है, वो है एक आपसी विश्वास, जो क्लैरिटी थी, जो सहजता से एक दूसरे पर पहुंच है. कभी भी प्रिया में हम लोग जा सकते हैं. प्रिया के जो रिसोर्सेस हैं, जो नॉलेज है, जो एक्सपीरियंस है, वो हम इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं. जो दूसरे NCRSO के जो नॉलेज और एक्सपीरियंस है, दैट वी कैन यूज इट. I still remember, in SSK in UP, we started, some of the training course, which even I had not attended or done any program. But, we knew that Priya has already done this training program. So we received a lot of support and guidance from Priya. And then, we conducted this training program, and these programs were considered very useful. Then we adopted, did some modification in the course, developed some Hindi material, and now these training programs are, very popular and people find them very useful. तो ये एक इस नेटवर्क की बहुत बड़ी खूबसूरती थी, आपसी सहयोग, आपस में जो एलिमेंट ऑफ ट्रस्ट which was very high, still it is very high. एक और बहुत महत्वपूर्ण चीज हुई इस नेटवर्क में, आमतौर पर किसी भी नेटवर्क में the losing of your own identity and your expertise, that is a major threat in most of the, because I am also part of a very active network in UP. It's called Uttar Pradesh Volunteer Action Network. So, there are many lessons and, there are many values which I draw from this NCRSO network. I applied and used them in strengthening the state level network. Number one was that we were not doing any donor activities or providing any resource to the partner organization, and maintaining the independent identity of each and every member in the network. That is extremely important. So in NCRSO network also, we have our own space, we have our own space for giving suggestions, identifying a problem, taking up the issue in regional specific context. So those kind of, and then people are ready to learn. Then people are ready to learn from each other. So that is also a very important part which has really strengthened this network. अभी ये नेटवर्क लगभग 30 साल, क्योंकि मुझे 30 साल हो गए हैं, तो लगभग, और हम लोग आशा कर रहे हैं कि प्रिया जैसे हम भी SSK at 40 का सेलिब्रेशन करेंगे बड़े अंदाज में, है ना? और ऐसे समय में कुछ चैलेंजेस जो है फ्यूचर में के लिए मुझे दिखाई देते हैं. एक तो बिकॉज ऑफ 30 years or 40 years, the leadership is in transition, कहीं ना कहीं पर, and we were having some discussion today. So what kind of organization, the new leaders, how the new leaders will come, how the core values of this supporting or enabling role could be taken forward, carried forward. किस तरह से इस चीज को संस्थागत में institutionalize किया जाए, so that this remains within the organization. How to orient future leaders about this. So that is number one. Second is, we have also realized that in our capacity building effort, we had not used the new technology, the new the latest technology. So we relied more on face-to-face interaction with emotions. ना ये सब हम लोग की हर एक ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम में बहुत important हमारे tools थे. Now those set of tools are changing and being replaced by Zoom and other technological advancements. So how we are going to use these new technologies and tools in our capacity building efforts? So that is another challenge, because somehow we'll have to learn to use them, and we are thinking about this. Also, we could see a kind of non-conducive environment, by the state, by the central legislation. There are many grassroots level organizations, smaller organizations, they are finding it very difficult to survive in this new context. So what kind of role as a support organization we should provide at this point of time? That is a big challenge, and we are struggling with this, because we could see there are many organizations who are really dependent on funding from the second recipient. They find it very difficult now to survive. So what kind of support is required for them? What kind of role we can play for them? So these are the new challenges that we could see. And certainly, this our NCRSO, we have been discussing this problem, and maybe we will come out with some solution or some response on these challenges.
Thank you, Ashok bhai.
Thank you, Rajesh bhai.
Thank you so much. We're really running out of time. Maybe we can come to Yogesh bhai. Yogesh bhai, you have quietly listened all the deliberations.
सबसे पहले मुबारकबाद प्रिया और हम सबको, क्योंकि जो प्रिया का मूल्य है सहभागिता का, और सहभागिता को बढ़ाने के लिए तो इसलिए ये 40 वर्ष की यात्रा में बहुत सारे सहगामी हैं, और उन सब सहगामियों के लिए भी उतना ही महत्वपूर्ण है जितना प्रिया के लिए आज का सेलिब्रेशन या ये इस वर्ष का सेलिब्रेशन, और हम सब उसके भागीदार हैं, इससे हैं। ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण यात्रा रही कुल मिलाकर, अगर कहा जाए प्रिया के जो 40 वर्ष में आज जहां हम बैठे हैं और जिस विषय पर खासतौर से केंद्रित है, ये एक विशेष उपलब्धि के रूप में मैं देखता हूँ प्रिया के इस काम में, क्योंकि वो जो समय था और छोटी छोटी संस्थाएं उस दौरान खड़ी हो रही थी, उनको सहयोग की ज़रूरत थी, और प्रिया का जो मूल सिद्धांत था कि स्थानीय लोगों को कैसे मूल में लाया जाए, केंद्र में कैसे लाए, कैसे जो विकास का जो पूरी यात्रा है वो उन लोगों के साथ शुरू हो जिनकी ये समस्या है। तो लोक केंद्रित विकास की जो अवधारणा थी, उसका विकल्प तभी था जब स्थानीय संस्थाएं खड़ी हों और अपने परिवेश में, अपने सामाजिक, आर्थिक, राजनीतिक परिवेश में स्थानीय लोगों को खड़ा करने की ताकत बना सके। तो ये जो एक आपने कहा कि पर्पस की बात आई कि हमारा एक शेयर्ड पर्पस क्या था, शेयर्ड पर्पस यही था उस दौरान कि अगर हम वास्तव में टिकाऊ विकास की कल्पना करते हैं तो वो संभव नहीं है जब तक वो लोग नहीं आएंगे उस केंद्र में, या वो लोग उसके नेतृत्व में नहीं आएंगे जो उनके सबसे करीब हैं या जिनकी समस्या उनके करीब है। और इसलिए इस तरह की भूमिका में NCRSO की उत्पत्ति हुई, इसीलिए विभिन्न राज्यों में विभिन्न क्षमताओं के साथ खड़े हुए और इस तरह की बहुत सारी संस्थाओं के साथ जो काम हुआ उनको खड़ा करना और उनके माध्यम से स्थानीय संगठनों को खड़ा करना। ये जो चुनौतियां आप सबने कहा भी कि स्वैच्छिक संगठनों के सामने रही है, क्योंकि संसाधन का दबाव रहा, और जो संसाधन हमेशा आते रहे वो कभी सहयोगी कार्यक्रमों के हस्तक्षेप को बढ़ाने के लिए कम आए। शुरू में जो आए उसकी वजह से बहुत काम हुआ, बाद में जो संसाधन आए वो गिनती गिनने के लिए आए कि कितने आपने कुएं बनाए, कितनी आपने सड़कें बनाई, कितने लोगों को प्रशिक्षित तो किया। तो ये जो मूल्य था जिसकी बातचीत भी की गई कि ये मूल्य था कि हम अगर घर में साथ बैठकर शाम का खाना खाते हैं, इसको कैसे काउंट करेंगे कि किस तरह के मूल्य निर्माण हुए परिवार के सभी लोगों के बीच में। और शैक्षिक संगठनों के बीच की भी यही एक समस्या थी। हमने जिन लोगों का हाथ पकड़ा, जिनको सहयोग दिया, जिनके ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में बन रहे संगठनों में साथ खड़े हुए, प्रशिक्षण दिया, उसके मूल्य को कैसे काउंट करेंगे। और इसलिए डोनर्स को कन्विंस करना बहुत मुश्किल था, इसलिए बहुत सारी स्वैच्छिक जो सहयोगी संस्थाएं थीं उनको सीधे भी जाना पड़ा। सरकार की तरफ से हमारे पास ये सवाल आता था कि भाई आप फेंस पर बैठकर ये ज्ञान देते हैं, आप जमीन में उतरिए और फिर आप लोगों को बताइए। तो हम कूद गए, हमने कहा ठीक है हम भी आ जाते हैं, 2-4 गोल हम भी मारेंगे और बताएंगे आपको, गोल भी मारेंगे और फिर कोचिंग भी करेंगे। तो ये जो चुनौतियां थी उन्होंने हमें बदला भी, और स्वैच्छिक संगठनों के स्वरूप के बदलने के साथ, दाता संस्थाओं के बदलने के साथ, सरकार की अपेक्षाओं के बदलने के साथ, सहयोगी संस्थाओं की भी भूमिकाएं और उनके स्वरूप और चरित्र में भी बदलाव आया। लेकिन हमने उसे छोड़ा नहीं, क्योंकि हमारे DNA में था सहयोग। ज्यादातर संस्थाएं जो यहाँ बैठी हैं, जो उन्होंने काम किया। तो आगे चलकर जो आज चुनौती है, क्योंकि 40 वर्ष में हम लोग अगले 40 वर्ष के बारे में सोच रहे हैं, और 40 के बाद तक ना सोच पाए तो कम से कम अगले 20 के बारे में सोचेंगे, ये जरूरी है, क्योंकि अभी 50 भी होगा, फिर 60 भी होगा राजेश भाई के साथ इसको। तो सवाल ये है कि आज जो सहभागी विकास को बढ़ाने की परिस्थिति के लिए हम सब लोग खड़े हुए थे, वो चुनौतियां और गहरा गई हैं। कोविड का जिक्र आपने किया, वो तो है ही, साथ में जिस तरह का असंतुलन समाज में खड़ा हुआ है, चाहे वो आर्थिक तौर पर खड़ा हुआ हो, चाहे सामाजिक तौर पर खड़ा हुआ हो, चाहे महिला और पुरुषों के विभेद का जो अंतर लंबे समय से चल रहा था, उसके नए स्वरूप हमारे सामने आ रहे हैं और देख पा रहे हैं, तो कहीं ना कहीं वो भूमिका बनी हुई है और उसकी आवश्यकता है। और हम 7, 8 या 10 या 20 संस्थाओं के, सहयोगी संस्थाओं से वो बदलाव की अपेक्षा करना बहुत मुश्किल है। इसलिए हजारों संस्थाओं को आज सहयोगी संस्थाओं में लाने की आवश्यकता है। तो कैसे वो कन्वर्जन हो उन संस्थाओं का जिनके पास, संस्था के पास संसाधन भी है, उनके पास नेतृत्व भी है, उनका जुड़ाव भी है नीचे स्तर पर, और वो कैसे अपनी भूमिकाओं को बदलने का काम करें, और वो कैसे सहयोगी और सहभागी परिस्थितियों को बढ़ाने के प्लेटफॉर्म्स खड़े कर सकें। क्योंकि ये जो महत्वपूर्ण काम था, इसमें हमने जो लोगों को नर्चर किया, संस्थाओं को नर्चर किया, वो संवाद एक माध्यम था। कैसे वो प्लेटफॉर्म्स बने जहां आपस में बैठकर हम लोग एक दूसरे के साथ विचार विमर्श करें, कैसे सरकार के साथ बैठकर विचार विमर्श करें, वो एक सहभागी पद्धति का एक सिद्धांत है। वो हम कैसे आगे बढ़ा सके, वो हमें सोचना पड़ेगा। नए बहुत सारे संगठन खड़े हुए हैं, चाहे वो फार्मर्स प्रोड्यूसर्स कंपनी के रूप में आए हो, चाहे वो एसएचजीज के विलेज ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस और फेडरेशंस के रूप में आए हो। उनको हमें देखना पड़ेगा कि उनके बीच के नेतृत्व को खड़ा करने के लिए कौन सी संस्थाएं उपयोगी होंगी। स्वास्थ्य में बहुत सारे इस तरह के नेटवर्क आए हैं, चाहे आशा कार्यकर्ताओं के नेटवर्क हो, चाहे आंगनवाड़ी कार्यकर्ताओं के नेटवर्क खड़े हुए हों। उन नेटवर्क के साथ हम किस तरह से काम करेंगे, उनके लिए हमारे क्या नए रास्ते होंगे, वो भी हमें शायद सोचने की आज आवश्यकता होगी। किन माध्यमों से उन तक पहुंच पाएंगे। जो कोविड के चैलेंज में एक नया अवसर आ गया कि हम और आप संवाद कर पा रहे हैं इतनी दूर से बैठकर, उनको कैसे जोड़ पाएंगे। तो ये सब शायद हमारे लिए आगे की रणनीति और चुनौतियों के लिए कुछ बिंदु होंगे। धन्यवाद इस अवसर के लिए।
Thank you so much, Yogesh bhai. I could see a lot of comments on the chat box, which you might not be able to see. So I would sort of read one or two of them, which are sort of critical. One of the things that Bharti has been saying, that these are times that require cross-sectional dialogue. So that's an important point. Banashri is saying the conversation needs to continue further. And Bharti is saying again, institutional support for community-based and local grassroots level organizations is indeed one of the steps towards bringing grassroots organization to center stage. Rajesh bhai, you have listened to all these discussions. You posed those questions. To my mind, we got more than what we can chew, but you have to chew anyway. So, I mean, it's fascinating to listen to all these diverse voices and very pertinent suggestions that how we should move forward. What we should do, but the point is that how we should do. So maybe your sort of closing reflection on that what is our responsibility as Priya, what is our collective responsibility, and some of the indications that many of our colleagues have hinted at. What will we do in the next 10-15 years to promote partnership?
Thank you very much. योगेश जी ने अपनी बात में कहा कि सहभागिता हमारे डीएनए में है, और संस्थाओं के डीएनए और व्यक्तियों के डीएनए में थोड़ा अंतर होता है। I always believe that partnership is also between people. Actually, interinstitutional relationships are mediated through interpersonal relationships. And I have been fortunate to have had and continue to have such excellent relationships कि उस चर्चा में विजय महाजन आए, सवाल पूछने के पहले ही जवाब देना शुरू कर दिया। ये उस संबंध को दिखाता है जो इतने सालों में विश्वसनीयता के साथ बने हैं। विजय की हिम्मत नहीं है दूसरे किसी प्लेटफॉर्म में जाके कर सके, और ना हमारी जरूरत है कि हम उन्हें रोक दें। ये उस चीज को, उस व्यवहार को दिखाता है जो रोजमर्रा के सहभागिता की सोच में अगर उद्देश्य टिकाऊ विकास है, we want to sustain a just and equal socio-economic order, then our everyday behavior also must somehow reflect that. हमारी बहुत बड़ी tragedy है इस देश में, we live in a country where there is a huge disconnect between what we preach and what we practice. And this is across the board, and I will not necessarily say that civil society is as a class superior in this respect. And what many of you have said about recognizing the contribution, appreciating what Sudhir was saying. You see, Manisha को 10th anniversary याद थी, 30 साल पहले की बात. We had just shifted to this building. यहीं सामने कंस्ट्रक्शन नहीं था, वहां तंबू लगा के 10th एनिवर्सरी मनाई गई थी फरवरी 1992 में. और हो सकता है तब तक मनु जो है वो कॉलेज में आ गए हों, क्योंकि 82 में वो स्कूल में थे. The point is that why it is that Manisha remembers that, because that partnership was to a purpose which transformed not only the work that she and her colleagues were doing, but many others. So, ultimately, we are in the business of changing relations of power. Because without changing relations of power, it is unlikely that equitable and just societies can be created. The forms of power have changed over 40 years. There is a much greater assertion of invisible, hidden, remote power and control. The power of money has increased systematically, just as the power of information. So, if we have to change the relations of power, we have to find partnerships where people understand how money operates and people understand how information technology operates. I think going forward, it is our job, those of us who are already the converted, who are sitting in this conversation. There is a whole world out there which is not yet converted. We are a cult. हम तो एक सिर पे बांध लिया और चल निकले. अब सुधीर कन्वर्ट हो गया है 5 साल पहले, so it's very good, heartening. अब वो लाएगा और लोगों को पकड़ के कन्वर्ट करेगा. बट हमारा जो कन्वर्टेड ग्रुप है, ये जो बैठे हुए हैं जिन्होंने आज बात की, आप सब लोग, प्रिया का उसमें बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट रोल है. We need to go out to those who understand the power of money and the power of technology, to bring them to this realization that participation is at the foundation of any transformation, and ask them this question about their own lives, because if they had not participated in making choices in their life, they would not have reached where they've reached. And all we want to do is to enable every Indian citizen to be able to make choices about their life, to be able to participate in shaping their own future. And in order to do so, have the opportunity to examine alternatives. Because if you don't have alternatives, you cannot choose. If you are condemned to live what you're living, then there is no choice. तो मुझे लगता है कि हम लोगों के ऊपर ये जिम्मेदारी है कि जो सहभागिता का हमारा आंदोलन है, इसको हम आगे बढ़ाएं, और उसका तरीका वही है कि हम सहभागिता को सहभागिता से ही बढ़ा सकते हैं, हम उसको डंडे से नहीं बढ़ा सकते. तो we converge what we want to achieve with how we go about achieving that. And that is a task that I hope not just Priya and ourselves, but all of you who are engaged in this process realize. और देखिए, शुरुआत कहीं से भी हो सकती है, उसके लिए किसी एक घोषणा करने की आवश्यकता नहीं है, और जहां शुरुआत होती है, अगर हमें वो कटिबद्धता है, वो कमिटमेंट है, तो हम सब लोग उस शुरुआत को साथ देंगे, उसमें जुड़ जाएंगे. And I hope that this conversation, certainly as Costa you said, we didn't anticipate. It was initially going to be just a conversation among 5 of us in the room, but we expanded it and we learned so much from all of you. So thank you very much, and let us continue the journey. And if there is a way to sharpen the DNA, let's do that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone. It was wonderful to listen to all the insights from those who have participated virtually, as well as those who are here with us today. Thank you, Rajesh Bhai, for those concluding takeaways. I mean, there are many more takeaways. Of course, we have to sort of digest what we have got in this. Now we are going to have a cup of tea. So you can also virtually, enjoy a cup of tea or coffee. So thank you so much for joining this afternoon.
Thank you, Costa.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Costa. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you so much and good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Costa, and good luck to Priya for the rest of his journey.
Thank you.